Hello,
What's up,
Chris.
my man?
How you doing, man?
Doing awesome. How are you doing?
Doing all right. I'm just chilling here with my pup,
I
Biscuit.
love
That's my co-pilot.
it. I
So
usually have my black lab Shadow in with us, and almost every time I'm in the office. I don't have him in today, but I should have brought him.
yeah, they could have had, they could have had a little side pod, little dog
Exactly.
pod.
I love it. You look like you get the big recliner with the microphone and the head. I mean, damn. Look how far you've come.
I know, right? I mean, and this is, your old brand,
It
Pearl.
is.
I,
I
I
love
live
that
at
brand.
I actually live in the Pearl Brewery, the old Pearl Brewery in downtown San
Really?
Antonio.
Oh, that is super cool.
So and office, but yeah, since the pandemic I just made this recliner kind of my hub center for ruling the entire global beer industry with the dog in the co-pilot seat.
I love it. There are many times that I want to be you, but no more so than this time right now. That is my dream setup with a cooler
That
next to me and my dog and a big chair and talking about the beer business.
Listen, there are many times, Chris, that I wanted to be you. So um
Uh,
and so welcome to BeerNet Radio. You
Thank
finally
you.
hit the top. We this podcast has been going on for I don't know 6 months or so, and we haven't had I don't think we've had a distributor on. It's all suppliers and marketers. And however, the suppliers we did have on, one of the common words out of their mouth was Colombia, and like two or three suppliers. We have pockets of success. One's in the Pac Nor'west with Colombia. All these pockets of success always centered around Colombia. So you're doing something right, apparently.
It's very flattering.
And because really the art of a modern beer distributorship, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is giving each of your many suppliers the appropriate attention and focus that either they deserve or that they should deserve. And knowing the difference is hard. Is that, right?
I
No.
couldn't agree with you more. It's probably, especially a big, not only multi-brand house as it relates to beer, but we look at ourselves, we're a beverage distributor, although I'll talk to you a little bit about, if you're interested in some of our kind of long-term strategic thinking about even getting outside of beverage. But yeah, our portfolios, even on the beer side, are so vast. But then if you include those of us who are in non-alc, wine, spirits, it is a constant conversation that we have of, are we giving enough time to all of our suppliers? We have 15 branches across 3 states. That can add complexity. So how do we make it easier for our suppliers to do business with us? And those are conversations we literally have, Harry, just about every day.
And that's the right conversation, I would think. And by the way, this is Chris Steffanci. I don't know. I'm so terrible at introducing people.
Steffanci, by the way, you've been mispronouncing
Steffanci.
for 20 years.
That's just what I do, is mispronounce names. So it's Steffanci.
Yes.
Why didn't you tell me this 10 years ago?
I did. I told you on stage. I think last time I was out at
You tell me on stage. I don't remember anything on stage. I'm always really drugged up and drunk when I'm on stage.
That's why I love doing those, by the way. Those are my favorite.
Well, we're going to do it again for sure. But anyway, Chris Steffanci. And what are you, the president or something, or GM?
President and CEO.
President and CEO of Columbia Distributing, which is vast beer and wine and spirits house, really in from where? What you're in Oregon and Washington?
Oregon, Washington, and we're in Santa Rosa, so Northern California.
Right. Okay. And multi-brand house, and owned by a family office. So first let's get into, you sold a lot of beer this year, but how much could you have sold if you actually had supply?
Well, that's something I can give you an exact number. We literally have been tracking that daily through the whole year. So we'll do this year close to 60 million cases of just beer. We'll do about 81 million cases in our whole portfolio. So literally, and this is just year to date, we've lost, and I use the word lost, softly. I'll talk to you about that in a second. But right now to date, as far as just true out of stocks, meaning invoices that we've submitted, that we've gotten orders from retailers that we couldn't fulfill, 17 million cases is where we're at right now. So obviously out of stocks have had a massive impact to our business. Now, those don't equate to lost sales, right? We have a big portfolio. People are moving to secondary packages. So we believe, though, realistically, we probably lost 20% of that. that you would argue based on our market share that went to somebody else. So, it's still meaningful, right? It could be 2.5 or 3 million cases that we weren't able to capture this year.
I mean, and that's the size of a good sized distributorship in some markets.
Yeah. A huge distributorship.
Right. I mean, when I worked at Houston Distributing, it was a 5 or 6 million case distributor, and we were like in the top 10 back then. Like we were considered one of the top largest distributors in the country at 5 million cases, which is, almost child's play at this juncture. But okay, so that's not cool, but nothing you can do about. And like you said, luckily you do have a very deep bench on your portfolio, so you're probably just trading within your own house, except for whatever your market share is, right? Like you said. So what have you seen it getting any better as we get into November, or is it worse?
No, it is getting better. I will tell you, it got better coming into kind of the middle of spring, and then summer, it got a lot worse for us, right? And I will tell you, the last only 4 to 6 weeks, we've seen noticeable improvement, right? And certain suppliers got a little bit better faster than others. But the one thing we spent a lot of energy with our teams talking about, and you just mentioned it, right? There's nothing we can do. We know our suppliers want to sell as much beer as we do, right? This whole supply chain throughout, all consumer goods is an absolute mess. So one of the things we tried to do early on was not finger point, try to control what we can control. By the way, if we're out of stock on one part of our portfolio, we did a really good job of shifting and spending a bunch of energy and focusing our team on a different part of our portfolio. So that made up for a lot of that loss, but things are getting better, but we're still not out of the woods yet. We don't think we're going to be out of the woods of this, probably till the beginning of 2022 and maybe beyond. But I just hope we don't have another summer next year like we did this year. That was pain that would be hard to repeat.
Right. Because, one of the hardest things in business is to tell your customers, we know what you want and we normally have it. We just don't have it right now. And, I mean, it's just that is a pain point, because
it is. And I think, Harry, the hardest thing about that I think, even we as, senior managers at distributors, or quite honestly, our suppliers, I think the thing that people forget is it's our drivers, our merchandisers, and our sales reps who take 90% of the brunt of the anger from retailers, right? So a chain guy might get a call from a buyer. By the way, I got calls from presidents of our divisions, of our chains, and I walked them through the issues. And by the way, they understand, they get it. But it's every single time a sales rep walks into an account and says, hey, I ordered X number of cases of this brand and you only sent me half. By the way, think about how often they walk into those accounts. Our frontline employees dealt with the brunt of what I would call kind of the pushback or the anger from retail. And I think a lot of times we forget that. And so I commend not only Columbia, but the front line of what distributors across this country did. I don't care if you're Molson Coors, Anheuser-Busch, what they had to endure outside of COVID, dealing with masks, and then dealing with what was a really big challenge from every single retailer they walked into. They need to be commended and applauded, because they're the ones who actually, worked through all of this when a lot of us were talking about we worked virtually. Well, no distributors worked virtually, right? They're warehouse people, delivery drivers, salespeople, merchandisers. I mean, these people were out every single day in the middle of the pandemic when a lot of other people were sitting at home and they're on Zoom calls, kind of in their underwear.
Right. I mean, it's such a great point. And you see it like, I follow some meme accounts, that are anonymous from beer drivers and salespeople. And, it's just like, different days, same bullshit. We're out of stock, and they do get the brunt of it. Like it's their fault. And it just sucks. And
spend all their time defending, what that they can't control.
Right. And then there's, not to pile on suppliers, but then there's some suppliers who keep promoting brands and packages that they can't produce. I'm like, why are you discounting this shit when you can't even make it? I mean, that's, really making sure you have product for an activation is probably something that these guys need to communicate better, from what I've seen. Or
even when you're running a bunch of media, right? You're running a bunch of media,
right?
National advertising, which, by the way, all of us distributors spend and invest behind, and then you can't get product and you're advertising to empty shelves.
Right. Yeah. I mean, right. I mean, it's a classic conundrum. You pay your cents per case, and it all goes to It all goes to media, and you're like, why are we even marketing right now? But yeah, I get, yeah. So let's talk about labor. You guys are in probably one of the tightest, I would think, labor markets in the country. CDL drivers, give me a solution, please. And what can I do to help? Where,
Man, I got to tell you, if there was a solution, I would honestly call every distributor I know to help, because we're all in the same boat on this. I mean,
yeah,
we have our KEG groups and our distributor kind of think tank groups, and there's no easy way out. And I think, by the way, we talk, obviously, distributors, again, regardless of what your major domestic affiliation, we talk all the time. We talk at our wholesaler association meetings, and I got to tell you, there's a lot of best practices out there. But I will tell you, at least we haven't heard yet of a true fix. But we've done and tried everything, and a lot of things we tried actually have failed, and we spent a lot of money kind of trying new things. I mean, we've done everything from retention bonuses. We raised our wages significantly this year. I mean, to the tune of almost $5 million, which will impact our business this year. That was certainly unbudgeted, and so some of that's helped. The biggest challenge right now is just we're all fighting for the same labor pool. And I'll give you a great example. Amazon keeps building 1 million square foot facilities in just about every town that Columbia seems to be in. They moved across the street here in Seattle. They just opened a facility down in Canby, where we already put our new warehouse a year ago. And so we're fighting for the same labor pool. So even you can only take wages up so much to kind of entice people. So a lot of the activities we did, we ended up finding that it retained our people. So retention was good. Recruitment and getting new people in the door is still the hardest thing we're dealing with. And we're literally, on any given day, we have about 10% of our total jobs open, which for us is about 350 jobs. So any given day we have 350 jobs. We created our own entire, recruitment division within Columbia, which we never had years ago. We'd always use third parties and all of that. So I think the challenge is it's not just a wage issue. And obviously with inflation, even if you're upping wages, right, disposable income is the same or less when people have to go spend more on eggs and everything else. So the only other thing I'll say is that while this is somewhat COVID driven, we've been talking about labor, especially as it relates to CDL drivers in the distributor tier, for 5 or 6 years. And so even coming out of COVID, I do think the labor pool will get a bit better. You might not have quantity, but I think you'll have better quality candidates. I mean, right now we're hiring anybody with a heartbeat, and I'm not, that's no exaggeration. If you walk through our door, we're going to put you on a forklift or get you out merchandising. But down the road, CDL drivers.
I don't know if you know this, but Biscuit moonlights as a driver for Benny Keith at night.
Hey, by the way, if Biscuit's worth taking and maybe a couple extra bags of snacks, maybe I'll pull him over to Columbia.
Yeah,
that's great.
He's got her CDL.
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. Yeah,
crappy doggy license. Good one, right?
That's the challenge. And honestly, what we're trying to look at is how do we start evolving our fleet, right? So you're not going to need so many CDL drivers. And I think a lot of us are looking at that, right? And are there routes that we can reduce truck sizes and go to Class B and Class C licenses and things like that? But I got to tell you, over the next 5 years, there's not going to be an influx of CDL drivers. People aren't waking up every morning now saying, "Hey, I'm now 21. I'm gonna go drive a truck." It's just it's not the same as it was.
Well, especially if they partake in weed.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, they get tested, and then they laid off. What are they? The feds made truck companies fire 80,000 people last week because they failed their drug test.
Yep.
It's like, first of all, marijuana is legal in most of these states. Second of all, we have a shortage here. And, as soon as you buy all those bobtail trucks that don't need CDL driver's licenses, the feds are going to change the law so that you don't need a CDL for a local driver. After you've invested millions in these, everybody's worried about climate change. We don't need smaller trucks. We need bigger ones you see the beer truck. It just goes around town. You don't need a CDL to drive a damn side loader.
Yep.
I'm preaching the choir here.
You're 100% right. And right, because it's controlled federally in DOT, we changed our drug testing policy for most of our other jobs because we're in 2 states that marijuana is perfectly legal and is now in California too. And so obviously with truck driver CDLs, it's a different story. You're controlled under a different set of rules. But you're right. I mean, it's a lot of those things that are driving people to either not want to get in the trucking business, or when it's a tight market right now, it just impacts price, right? I mean, what these long haul drivers are getting paid right now is crazy. And at some point, that's going to have to change. And there's just not a lot of new labor coming into the market. So it's our biggest challenge, but that's not a challenge that's going to go away when quote unquote COVID ends.
Right. And, plus you're like, okay, you have your CDL. Guess what? You're not really a driver. You're going to be unloading cases. And there's a huge physical element to this job as well. And they're like,
100%.
well, why shouldn't I just be an over the road and just sit in a cab and listen to Howard Stern for 12 hours a day?
You're 100% right on that too. We talk about that all the time. You want to be a driver, you're going to be a long haul. You're going to, and by the way, you're never going to touch any of your freight. Again, I go back to our drivers. I mean, they're merchandisers. They're working hard. They're moving cases. They're moving pallets.
They're fit.
This is brutally hard work.
At least you're fit.
Yeah, that's right.
You're not going to get diabetes sitting as a beer truck driver. No way.
Exactly. We don't need the gym set up with these guys. No. They're not only fit, they're strong. That's
Chris. The only time I've ever been fit in my life was when I was driving a beer truck in my 20s, so early 20s.
I'm with you. I wasn't driving the beer truck, but I started in merchandising, and I agree. Once I figured out how much I love this business and moved out of merchandising into sales, that's when I started drinking too much beer, and I never looked back since.
Me too. At least you kept your hair.
Yeah, I did. I know. I got one thing going for me.
Yeah, you got that going. Well, let's talk about some of your brands, and Coors Light is kind of big up there, right?
It is.
And so how is that going? I know you don't like to talk about your suppliers, but is it still growing for you guys or no?
It is. Matter of fact, we had a couple of years where we were soft, minimally declining. And if you look at the last 2 years for us, Coors Light, even this year, by the way, and Coors Light, we had massive out of stocks on Coors Light. We're actually up. We're up. We're not up a full point. We're up probably about 0.3. So all things considered, having Coors Light as a brand being flat for us, which is still our largest brand in our portfolio up here across Oregon, Washington, it's yeoman's work. And I got to tell you, for us, it's something we're really proud of because it drives our whole Molson Coors portfolio. Pac Nor'west, we're a small Miller Lite market. So that's been one of the positives. And that one, honestly, I go back and look, versus the Constellation portfolio that was growing double digits and that kind of slowed down with out of stocks. Coors Light just started to catch momentum when we went into COVID and dealt with all these out of stocks. And so that one to me probably hurt the most because I really believe if we didn't have some of those out of stock issues, our Coors Light business would probably be more healthy now than it's been over the last 4 or 5 years.
And does anybody drink Miller Genuine Draft anymore? They used to be my favorite beer brand.
Not a lot of people are drinking it up here. I can tell you that. I'm sure around parts of the country people are drinking it, but not a lot around here.
Well, because I think Northern California is kind of the last bastion of share for that brand, and so maybe I thought it might have creeped up to Oregon by now, but maybe not.
Yeah, listen. There's pockets where people drink it even in our market for sure.
Yeah,
but yeah. Not sure how big it is nationally.
Yeah, and so how are you dealing with your suppliers on a post-COVID or during? I guess we're still in COVID, but are there as many in-person meetings, or is it still like a lot of Zoom? Are there a lot of ride widths? Like, how is that progressing?
So everything during what I would call the worst part of COVID was all Zoom. We had our offices closed. They're still, even today, partially closed, if you will. We are now allowing suppliers to, if they're vaccinated, to come into our buildings, but it was all virtual, right? So we did planning meetings. And again, some suppliers engaged really deeply through virtual meetings. And I'll be totally honest, other suppliers you didn't hear from them for a year, like not a phone call, right? Literally not a phone call, not a how you doing. And I got to tell you, we like that in some regard, right?
Yeah, those are the best suppliers to have.
Yeah, yeah. Some of my team would tell you that.
Yeah, see you next Tuesday.
Right. And then as soon as things started opening up, we started getting all these phone calls again. But, I would say for the most part, our big suppliers were super actively engaged. We did literally everything virtually. The cool thing, Harry, that we had an opportunity to do is, we kind of do these 5-year strategic plans, and we are coming off our last 5-year strategic plan, kind of coming in before COVID hit. And that 5-year strategy was awesome. I mean, it doubled our business over 5 years. It got us into wine and spirits directly. So a lot of the things that we thought were—
Wait. doubled your business? Like
And
you're
we
talking about
doubled our
sales?
business. Yeah, we doubled our business over a 5-year strategic plan. Now, a lot of that was mergers and acquisitions as part of that, but
Right.
also our top line growth was incredibly strong, right? And
Yeah.
so, we had a great plan. I used to joke that on the supplier side, we would set a lot of strategy and do a lot of strategic work, but we'd never
Right.
quite see it through, right? Leadership changes, executive changes. And it took me to come to a distributor to actually be, have an opportunity to create a strategic plan, see it all the way through and actually deliver the goals that we originally set, which typically they think we're just, distributors are out there, just their execution and tactical. And I would fundamentally disagree with that.
I mean, that is a misconception, I think, because there is so much steadier talent in the distribution tier that you're going to be working with year over year over year that you know is going to be there. And
it is. And the one positive about COVID and all the virtual world we lived in is it was right at the time we were beginning our next 5-year strategic plan. So we worked on this strategic plan over 6-8 months. And the cool thing about it is for the first time, when we finished our 5-year strategic plan, we set up virtual top to top calls with all of our top suppliers. And we actually walked them through in detail, by the way, our entire strategic plan. So we talked to them about our mission and vision. We took them through kind of our 5 strategic pillars, which for us are like total beverage and beyond, improved efficiency, strategic alliances, portfolio optimization, and mergers and acquisitions. And we also shared with them for the first time what our overall financial objectives were. We didn't get into nitty-gritty details on our numbers, but we basically said, we want you to understand how to align with us on what our financial goals are, because if we're both aligned, then we're going to make really good decisions for the business. And the last thing we did as part of those meetings were we had basically a strategic scorecard at the end, and we said, hey, you supplier A, here's where all of these things we just walked you through, here's where we actually think we're strategically aligned with you. And here's where we're not strategically aligned with you. And hey, is there a way that we can align? And by the way, you're never going to fully align with a supplier every single time, right? There's going to be certain areas.
well, yeah, because they want every SKU on the shelf.
Right. And that doesn't align with our strategy. You're exactly right. But I got to tell you, you know what? It was the first time that we, in a full transparent way, laid our cards on the table and said, we don't want you to guess what Columbia's thinking, where we're going. What, for some of the suppliers originally, when we got into wine and spirits, we caught a lot of shit over that. It was like, you're going to lose your focus on beer. And the irony now is, we did that. We got out of the Young's relationship almost 4 years ago now to sell wine and spirits on our own. And all of our beer suppliers are now selling, ironically, wine and spirits,
right.
Moving. So we got there a little bit ahead of that because we had a really good strategy, but it was cool to be able to take our suppliers kind of through this open book mindset of there's no guessing what Columbia's doing. Yes, we want to get bigger. Yes, we're going to drive for acquisitions and consolidation. And yeah, our portfolio is going to keep diversifying, and we're going to continue to find white space and build brands within white space that we know consumers are either looking for today or the consumers are going to be looking for a year or two down the road.
And that's very proactive because you're right. You don't see, suppliers are normally chasing down distributors this time of year.
Right.
We need your plan. We need the plan. We need the, it's, that's why I never understood why suppliers always had meetings in the spring. I was like, the planning's over.
It is. Yeah. We're already moving down the road. You're right.
Yeah. We're moving way down the road. And I think it was probably AB that figured out probably do it in the fall. Then everybody kind of followed. But that's fascinating that you went. I mean, and there's a little bit of risk too, right? Because you go to a supplier and you're like, here's our plan. And, by the way, we have other partners and they're part of the plan too. And, so
I got to tell you, I had a few people on my senior team were like, this is crazy. Why do we want to, why are we going to throw ourselves out there? And for me, I've always been, as you know, pretty candid and direct, and I don't beat around the bush too much. But for me, what really generated it was every council I sit on or discussions I have top to top with suppliers, they always talk about quote unquote strategic partnerships, right? Or strategic alliances with our distributors, or you guys are great partners, but we never really defined it, right? So I'm like, if we're going to be strategic partners, it would help if we actually understand each other's strategy, right? We can't say we're strategic partners if you guys have no idea where we want to take Columbia over the next 5 years. And we laid our cards on the table. I got to tell you, I think certain parts of our strategy probably made some of our suppliers wince a little bit, like, whoa, you guys are going down that road. But, for me, I feel like it's going to help our meetings moving forward. So when we do something, we can say, hey, remember we told you strategic alliances were super important? Yeah. So this is why we did that, right? And it's based on our strategy. We kind of told you where we were going. And I think down the road, it at least helps our suppliers understand our mindset. And we're trying to make good decisions for their portfolios and their business as much as we are for.
Right. And, one observation that I think I could safely make, having been in this business, as long as I think you and I are about the same age and we got in around the same time. I got in like in 91 or something.
You're 32 too.
Yeah. Yeah. Viscit,
I'm a little behind you. I got in the industry in 96. I graduated college.
Oh, you're younger. You're a little younger, but yeah, but what? Jenn's going to join us. Cool. So one of the things that I've noticed is that historically, distributors are defensive, right? Circle the wagons, and let's circle the wagons, and the less information we can give our suppliers, the better.
Yep.
But need to know basis only.
Yeah, don't give them the stick to beat you. Has been the mindset. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I do see this, what you just described, as a departure from that mindset, and I think it's great. We'll see how it goes. And like you said, these suppliers all preach this. Let's see if they're really, here's my strategy.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, the jury's out. We'll to your point, we'll see where it goes. It may come back to bite us a bit, but you know what? Kind of learned over the years, being more transparent versus less. It doesn't, if you're doing it in kind of an honest way with integrity, you can have debates about kind of how you execute the plan and some of the tactics and goals and all that. But at the end of the day, I think it never hurts to kind of, lay out the roadmap of where you're going. And that's basically was kind of our mindset doing that. And it was like, hey, here's kind of what we're doing, why we're doing it. And time will tell. But I got to tell you, the other thing is we're in such a different world than we were in, there's really no more traditional beer distributors and honestly, if you're just a traditional beer distributor, you're going to have a tough time surviving over the next several years. Just like there's no more traditional beer suppliers per se. I mean, the craft guys are getting super unique and innovative, which is awesome. And so I got to tell you, having us lay out our strategy also, like I'll tell you, give you a good example. Molson Coors is diving down the road of non-alc. We had a ton of conversations, and to their credit, they came and spent a bunch of time with us and said, you guys have been selling non-alc for decades, right? We're the largest Red Bull distributor in the United States. We have, this massive non-alc portfolio. And how, give us some insight. What do we need to be aware of? What do we need to know? And I got to tell you, I thought that was a great step for them to at least come out and ask the question. And so I think because all of our businesses and portfolios and categories are changing so fast, now you got spirit-based RTDs that a lot of beer distributors are interested in. I think the more we can have conversations with our suppliers about brands and consumers and how we go to market, I think that's the only way we're going to be successful. Because I got to tell you, from my perspective, the days of looking at Anheuser-Busch as my biggest competitor are long gone.
Yeah.
I mean, I look much more at Southern as a major competitor than I ever do ABI. I mean, because not even just because of their
Chris,
portfolio.
I think a lot of people need to learn that lesson. I think people are slow to that. And I mean, because we've been talking about this for 5 years, like what, Tito's, we're all fighting Tito's. We're not fighting 100%. Budweiser.
Exactly. And if you understand the way consumers are drinking cross categories, it's not like, well, because Southern doesn't sell beer in your specific market per se, they're not a competitor. We're fighting for the same consumers. And by the way, just take a look at spirit numbers. You guys report them all the time. Look at high-end premiumization in spirits. And if you're a traditional beer distributor, you should be scared to death.
Yeah. Aperol. Who knew?
Yeah, right.
Really a kind of a shitty Italian liquor.
Yep.
Even in Italy, they look down on.
Yep.
Now is $18 a drink in Manhattan.
Cool color. You throw an orange in it and away.
Oh, it looks cool on Instagram. Jennifer, thank you for joining. This is Jennifer Litz.
Jen.
Jen,
hey, Chris,
I have a bone. I have a bone to pick with you.
What's that?
Why have you let me mispronounce Chris's last name for the last 10 years? It's Steffanci.
Yeah. Well, what were you saying? Yeah, that's what I said.
Steffanci. Yeah.
I was saying
Steffanci. I think Jen's always said it right.
I was saying Steffanci. Like,
I mean,
Steffanci, and you.
When my grandfather came over from Italy, there's still two F's. There were two C's. So arguably, Harry, I'll give you some credit. It could have been pronounced Steffanci when he hit Ellis Island. And then they made him drop a C.
Listen, we arrived in Galveston as Schumacher. And we decided to anglicize it to shoemaker. Well, because, Germans weren't very popular at the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move forward. Neither were Italians.
Yeah, right.
All right. So anyway, Jenn, we've talked about most of the stuff, but you kind of brought up non-alc, and Jenn, that was one of the questions Jenn had on a list. You guys are, like you said, you're the largest. I didn't realize that you were the largest Red Bull distributor in the country. Good
Largest
Lord.
independent Red Bull distributor, yeah.
And a lot of distributors, even large ones, are gun shy a little bit on non-alc because they don't want to, have the rug pulled out. And my response has always been, yeah, but make the dough while the sun's shining, and then if they pull it out, they pull it out. I mean, am I right on that or not?
100% right. By the way, I have this debate in keg groups and other circles. I mean, people are always like, you don't make any money in non-alc. I go, well, it's because you're not doing it right. If you don't make money in non-alc, you're just not doing it right. And by the way, there's no franchise protection, but there's contracts in non-alc. We all have contracts. Can you get a brand pulled from you? Yes. But the fact of the matter is you can have some protection with contracts. I would just keep, Red Bull's probably the exception to that, but you can have, but you know what? The supplier can still terminate you. So you know what? If we're not doing a good job and we have a contract in place to at least get compensated for the work.
Yeah. Like one times gross or two times, whatever it is.
Yep. Exactly right. And so you can negotiate a good contract. My perspective is, like, there's no guarantees in life in anything. So why not make the revenue while you can? And by the way, if you get enough scale in non-alc, it is incredibly profitable. By the way, you can leverage, merchandising labor over that as well. You're in the same stores. Yeah, you got to be at a different section or a different aisle. I mean, our non-alc business now is massive. I mean, it's 20 million case business for us. And it is incredibly profitable. Not every SKU is as profitable as others, but you look at some of these, I mean, Athletic Brewing is a great example, right?
Well, that's a non-alc beer.
I get it. But if you look at it as a non-alc product and you look at the margins that they have in some of these, I'll even, some of our alkaline waters and other things, the days of making $1.50 or $2 a case, if you have the right portfolio, are over. The non-alc business, especially, by the way, because our suppliers are getting in a non-alc. I don't know how you're going to tell Molson Coors you're not going to bring in their non-alc portfolio.
The Zoa.
Yeah, right.
You're going to tell The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, no?
Yeah,
I don't.
Unfortunately, we had to tell him no, but I think we might be the only ones based on our important big Red Bull business.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, I have a question for you in terms of, you brought up athletic. Do you think that Bill Schufelt's it could get to 20 share of beer in, 5-10 years? Do you think that's complete BS, or can you see a day where that happens?
I think that's probably aggressive. It's not BS though. I got to tell you, we're selling. I think we might be the largest athletic brewing market in the country. I think we are for distributors. We're selling right now about 15,000 cases a month of athletic brewing.
Holy shit!
Yeah, and by the way, and Heineken 0.0 has been another great brand for us. We're selling about 5,000 a month of just to put in perspective of Heineken 0.0, and that brand's been incredibly successful.
Right.
What athletic brewing has magic in a bottle. By the way, the branding's awesome. They have the absolute right mindset of how they go to market. If you're a non-alcohol drinker, and by the way, the fundamental mindset of non-alc, 20 years ago it was because I'm a recovering alcoholic, right? I want to drink, I want to drink something. The mindset now, and by the way, this is, as you look at new consumer trends, we are super bullish on functional non-alc brands and non-alcoholic beer. And I give Heineken credit, by the way. They kind of got me. I was not on board with, really, you think non-alc beer? And obviously in Europe,
Chris,
having worked there, it's huge.
You and I, like I said, similar. I was the same way.
Yep.
And I remember going up to, I think, who was it, Maggie or whoever was
Maggie,
and saying, I've said this 100 times, but why are you going after that coveted O'Doul's occasion that nobody wants? O'Doul's was all we had. Klosteimer. Yeah. I mean, there was just a bunch of shitty beers that it was like, when you saw somebody drink one, you're like, oh, there's a recovering alcoholic.
Exactly.
It's almost like a stigma.
I did the same thing. I give Heineken credit on this. I mean, they were like, and Johnny Cahill kind of walked through, hey, let me tell you how consumers are thinking about it. And obviously, they have a massive non-alc business in Europe. And And so for me, one of the future trends that we're jumping on, and we already have, and you're seeing it in our athletic numbers and also our Heineken 0.0 numbers, is this either low alcohol or no alcohol consumption occasion is real. I think it's going to grow. To Bill's credit, I do think it's way more. It's going to be way bigger than most people think. Will it get to 20? Right. That's super aspirational. But I got to tell you, it's craft beer margins. The liquids are unbelievable. And if you want to drink a craft beer that has no alcohol, I mean, these guys nailed the secret sauce.
Yeah.
And obviously everybody else is now jumping on board. And so there's going to be like seltzer and everything else. There'll be a million of them. Everybody's going to brew one, and they already are. But these guys got ahead of it, and they're investing big. We're super bullish with these guys. And I hope for Bill's sake and ours, if it gets to a 20 share, we're going to be ahead of it. And hopefully we're still the biggest athletic distributor in the country.
Especially for Bill's sake, because like you said, he's selling at beer margins, but he's not paying excise tax, which is half of the cost of a beer at retail.
Yep.
I mean, think about that. But on the other hand, like he indicated, I just met Bill a couple weeks ago, but he's like, yeah, we have to put a pasteurizer machine that's like half the size of a football field in our brewery, because you can't flash pasteurize. You can't just, you can't just throw boiling water on the bottle or the can and hope that it's fine. You have to actually boil the, and so it's a lot harder to make non-alcoholic beer than it. And so there's a moat around his company. I have a lot of respect for that dude. I think he's really smart and very understated. He's one of those, he's going to be like one of those Jeff Bezos type guys that you think, oh, he's kind of a nerd, but he's going to end up being a billionaire.
He's a lot nicer than Jeff Bezos, I can tell you that.
Well, Jeff Bezos was nice too before he was, ruler of the world.
Yeah, right before he was an astronaut.
Did y'all see that video of Jeff Bezos' girlfriend?
Leonardo DiCaprio. He wanted none of it.
Yes. DiCaprio's like, first of all, DiCaprio's like, I don't want you lizard people around me. And then he kind of waved him off. And then she was like talking to him, and it was flirty. And Jeff Bezos looked.
Social media.
Oh, you got it.
No, I saw it. It was all over. My favorite part was how dismissive. Imagine being that dismissive to Jeff Bezos, Billy. Like, there's no one who could piss that guy off except Leonardo DiCaprio, who dismisses him and tries to pick up his girlfriend in front. I mean, at that point, you're like, I don't care how much money you have. Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the few in the world who could dismiss Jeff Bezos, and I bet Jeff Bezos was pissed off about it.
Oh, I mean, you know what? It tells me that I made the right choice being an artist rather than a millionaire.
You're an artist?
I am. I don't know if you knew this, Jen.
I know you're not a millionaire, but I'm a writer. I don't know about you.
Well, Jen, you're an artist too. We're journalists. We're writers. We create. We're creators.
Oh,
you guys do. By the way, you bring me a lot of entertainment when I read your stuff. So I will tell you that there's certainly an artistic side.
Thank you, Chris. And by the way, Chris, let me tell you this. From one Italian to another, my grandparents or ancestors.
I swear, Jen claims every ethnicity. First of all, she's Mexican, Jewish, Italian. I mean, all these things.
Story? Can it not be about you for 5 minutes? I'm trying to share with Chris.
I'm just trying to. The federal government's asking me how many minorities I have on my staff, and I said I have 12. All in one person. 12 minorities, one person. And I only have 6.
Jen, see the value you add? I would ask to double your pay based on you bringing the bringing the diversity of 12 people.
I'm bringing the female leadership. I'm bringing the Italian, possibly Brazilian. I'm bringing.
If you want me to not talk over you,
Mexican.
I'm gonna go ahead and mute myself. So go ahead and say what you're gonna say.
Oh my God. All right. It's done now. No, my ancestors came over Ellis Island, Cagliardi, and then they changed their last name to Litz. There was some convoluted thing, as there is at Ellis Island, about them wanting to work in a German wine factory. Anyway.
Oh my God.
But quick segue so that I can actually ask Chris 1 or 2 questions. Harry, you probably went through all the questions mostly, right?
Yeah.
All right. But I do want to ask one.
Yes. Sorry, I don't know if I'm on mute or am I on mute?
You're not. You're never on mute. You only.
Am I just old?
That too. But hey,
by the way, we missed out on all the technical problems I heard about in all the other podcasts. I feel like you gotten something right.
Oh God, he had them without me, so that's
because Jen wasn't on the call.
Oh my God.
I set this one up.
It is a
There's
fair
no
point.
problems.
I don't know, Jen. I mean, he did. He,
Zero
I came in and he was right there talking to me. No mute. Nothing.
I can tell you why, Chris, because
Coincidence?
I can tell you exactly why, because I set up all the other calls and he can't follow directions. That's why.
That might be
but
true.
no, one quick follow-up. And for everybody listening, I'm only a B to Harry on these as shtick. You know, we love each other very much. But you mentioned you're not, you know, you don't see AB as your competitor anymore, right? You see Southern. What about AB1 and all the things that they're piloting? I mean, right? They take all of it. So
no, for sure. And I meant more of AB as a traditional beer competitor.
Sure.
I mean, and again, I give ABI a ton of credit. I mean, Cutwater, an amazing acquisition, right? I mean, they've expanded probably the most aggressively, certainly the fastest into other categories, right? So they're always kind of moving and expanding. Yeah. And you know, especially when you have, your own distributors, right? That in a lot of states, we compete against them, you know, branches in both our states, in Oregon and Washington. They got to fill that pipeline because there's no other suppliers knocking on their door. So
true.
I agree with you. I think one, I think it was strategically smart of them to do that. And two is they got to feed their distributor pipeline with something. And so if they don't do that, then, and again, I go back to, if you're going to be a traditional beer distributor long-term, I don't know how you survive. I think you got a big challenge ahead.
Interesting. Yeah, cool.
Well, especially if you're adjacent to a branch,
right?
You know, like in California, and you're like, the branch isn't going to take anything, so nobody's going to come to me with anything.
Yeah, I mean, we have some great ABI distributors in Washington, and that's one of their biggest challenge, right? I mean, the Seattle's a branch, and there's independent ABI guys outside of that, you know, a new brand. I mean, we just got Sweetwater for our whole territory in all of Oregon, all of Washington, right? And so, you know, when you can come in and yeah, they talk to a bunch of different distributors, but at the end of the day, that's a big challenge for independent ABI guys when they have a branch that won't talk to anybody. And if somebody wants to come in through the ABI network, that's a massive challenge.
Chris, did you take on Sweetwater because you wanted Tilray?
I took on Sweetwater because I love the beer, and yes, of course, we wanted to take on 100%. By the way, again, we've been talking to those guys now for months. Another company that we believe, they're visionaries, right? They really understand where the consumers are going, where the market's going. And again, if you look at our strategy, and Jen, you weren't on, but I walked Harry through kind of our 5-year strategic plan and some of the things we were doing. If you look at our strategy, especially as it relates to total beverage and beyond, and kind of these strategic alliances, where those guys are headed are exactly where we want to go, and ties perfectly into our strategy. So we went after them aggressively. We love the beer portfolio, but those guys are thinking way outside of just beer, and I think it's smart.
For once, Harry's
silent. You're on mute now, Harry.
Harry, you're on mute. But yeah, no, I saw they just came out with this Riff vodka soda. So that'll be interesting how they align all of those brands and what sort of guardrails they have for what's cannabis and what's in Canada and what's here and what's not, you know. And so, yeah, just interesting.
Yeah, it is. And again, that will provide some complexity, but, you know, it's going to be a wild world when marijuana becomes federally legal. And, you know, you got a lot of people preparing for that. But, you know, if you look at what a mess it was as states kind of became legal, just with how they're going to structure, you know, where you can buy weed, who, you know, how the tax system works, banks, you know, not accepting cash, now starting to accept cash and credit. So I think there's going to be a massive learning curve in that space. But make no mistake about it, it's coming. And everybody knows it. And who's going to be ahead and win? You know, I think that's going to be the big question.
That is the big question. And thank you for indulging me. I was on mute, and my mouse battery went dead, so I couldn't take myself off mute. So I had to find a cord for my mouse battery to plug in my mouse so I could take my. Do you see how technology is really fucking our world?
I do. And by the way, I jinxed you when I said how good the technology was getting out.
And then I can't even get off mute, which was, you know, so Jen got to talk.
Right.
Okay, we'll go. We kept you.
Box.
Yeah, we let Jen out of her cage. We've kept you long, but gosh, I mean, I could keep you on for 2 hours, honestly, Chris, for another.
I got all the time in the world for you, Harry.
There's just so much to talk about, and you know, I'm glad you brought up the cannabis, because that was going to be kind of my next question. And you know, you're kind of just pounced, ready to go if and when it does become legal.
Yep.
And Are there any like you kind of, I think you hinted at some point that there may be non-beverage items that you could be selling. Is that true or no?
Yeah, it's true. We're already in it, right? So and again, one of our biggest strategic pillars is total beverage and beyond. By the way, our last 5-year strategy, it was our strategic pillar in this space was total beer and beyond. That's what led us in that strategic pillar is what led us into wine and spirits and CBD and getting into a different space. We've now kind of evolved that piece of our strategy to total beverage and beyond. I'll give you a great example. We cut a deal with a really awesome local coffee company called Cafe Vita here based out of Seattle. They have coffee shops. We now sell their whole bean coffee at grocery. And it's massively profitable because, right, again, we look at Seattle, Portland, huge coffee markets, billions of dollars of a category, and we never participated in it. And again, we go back and say, is this something we could do? How does it fit on our trucks? Is it easy to cube? Yep. It's by the way, coffee beans are lightweight, easy to transport. And we now sell Cafe Vita, and we're actually looking at a couple other coffee companies where not just coffee beverages, which we do sell coffee beverages within our non-alc space, but we decided now to get a whole bean coffee. And eventually that may lead to something else. And so we're going to continue to look outside of beverage. And we do have some, what I always call strategic checks and balances, right? One of the things we always ask is, hey, if we get into this space, is it part of our core competence? And we have literally a checklist that says, here are the things we need to answer. And if we answer yes to all these, then it makes sense. A lot of things we get, we say, this is way out of our wheelhouse. And if we get into this, it's gonna add complexity. And because of the way we're structured and we have a non-alc division, the other thing is, I always tell our beer suppliers, don't get worried about us getting distracted, because if you hear we're selling whole bean coffee, people freak out. Well, we have a specialized group that actually does that. So, we really try to make sure that as we add to our portfolio, we do it really strategically, methodically. We try to make sure that it incorporates and adds value, but doesn't take away from our core. We will always, our beer will always be our core. Wine and spirits will never be our core. Non-alc will never be our core. It will always be beer. But I got to tell you, having 25 million cases that reside outside of beer, allows us to have a multiple leg stool that a lot of people don't have. And so as consumers shift and change, it makes the viability of our business. We think we're in a real great sweet spot. We're going to continue to grow. And honestly, I want to double this business.
Double it again, Chris? No.
Well, in what time frame?
Well, the
Look
last
at
time we
Jen,
doubled it
ever
was
the reporter.
Yeah, we doubled it. The last time we doubled it was 5 years. I'm not sure I'm quite as ambitious, although depending on what the acquisition and deal flow looks like over the next few years, that could happen. But I think the next 5 to 8 years, we should look at doubling our business. And again, a lot of that will have to do with us getting into other states, which we plan to do, and really driving some acquisition and consolidation. But we got a great ownership group. They love this industry. They love the business. They love to invest behind it. They're seeing the rewards of their original investment. And so the good news is we got a group who's bullish, and they got a lot. They got a lot of investment opportunity for us. So we're feeling good about that.
It is you're DSD, and there are products that lend themselves well to DSD rather than central warehouse,
Yep.
Grocery delivery or whatever. And and like you said, you could create capacity on the sales side and then leverage the cost structure on the delivery and merchandising side, if that makes sense.
By the way, Harry, you just described, again, going back to our strategy, right? Efficiency for us is that, people think when they hear the word efficiency, they go, oh, they're cutting everything. No, for us, efficiency is how do we leverage the portfolio we have? We do it in C-stores every day, right? We do 70% of every C-store set. And then why do we do those? Because we walk in, we have KDP, that's a soda door that we do all the sets for. So we might as well do Coke and Pepsi as well. We're 65 share in beer, so we do all the beer sets. Oh, we have the #1 energy drink, so we set all the energy coolers, and we do water. And so no one else can walk in and actually have that conversation that we have. And that for me is efficiency, which is when you can leverage your size and scale to benefit the retailer in a greater way. And you can do it because that size and scale offers you the ability to overservice, obviously, because it helps you financially be able to do that with fixed and variable costs. So that, you just nailed it. That is the model that's worked. And that's the model we want to continue to have, which also, by the way, leads to, we've had chances to buy a bunch of different businesses, distributors, and a lot of them we've said no to because that model, they don't have the opportunity for that same model. And we believe we have a model that really works. And by the way, it's very complex compared to most models around the country, right? If you look at our business, I don't think there's really another distributor in the country that has the makeup of our portfolio, size and scale, and the amount of categories that we do business in. And so for us, we think it's a massive competitive advantage. And it doesn't only allow us to compete with ABI, it allows us to compete with Southern Wine and Spirits and RNDC and other competitors in the market.
Yeah, who enjoy a scale advantage over most beer guys just because of their size. And
right.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And, that's kind of the, AB distributors really enjoyed that advantage for so many years when they just had the higher market share and they had such diversity in their portfolio, meaning that they, from budget beer all the way to imports, they had it all covered. And I'm talking about like in the 90s, back when before it's common. And that's why they were those distributors were so successful and profitable and they even had snacks, the salty snacks.
That's right. The Eagle snacks.
Eagle snacks. They had a little bit of wine. They had some wine. They had some spirits dabbled in with Jekyll and Hyde. Like AB was trying to do basically what all companies are trying to do now.
Right.
They were trying to do it too soon, and I think, and and they which they should have done because they were the biggest, and if you're the biggest, you should at least try.
They were the Zima and the Grand Wagoneer of their industries, right? Zima was only about 15 years ahead of its time of when F&B explosion happened. And the Grand Wagoneer, one of the greatest and the first SUV ever, which then went away and then came back. But
yeah, like the Suburban is what the Grand Wagoneer should have been.
100%. You're exactly right.
Or whatever. Yeah. They were just too soon. I got to tell you a quick meaningless anecdote because that's also a part of our podcast culture. When I first started BeerNet, Beer Biz Daily, it was called the BeerNet Letter, and I had BeerNet, and the first concept was for distributors to hire us they would give me their pricing for chains, and I would put it in a format that the chain could use. In other words, HEB, and everybody has a different one, which is, it was a great idea. It was 20 years too early.
Yeah.
Because, that's what there's so many different companies that do that now, FinTech and Provi and whatever. But yeah, and then I just then the little newsletter, which was only supposed to be a promotional vehicle for that's what ended up being the best. I don't know why I told that story.
That's a great story though, right? What you think you start off doing and what you end up doing are a lot of times very different things.
That was the point. Yes. Right. Biscuit started off saying she wanted to have a dynamic, high energy podcast, and now she can barely stay awake.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Jenn, is there I know Jenn likes to have the last word.
No,
we've kept this guy for an hour, by the way. This is way longer than we normally.
Hey, by the way, I'm sorry that I was late. I was actually on a call with your own Lindsay, Chris, for the Brew Initiative that the MBWA is doing for more inclusivity, for more female representation in the industry.
Yes.
So
awesome.
That's why I was late, but today is crazy day. So I'm glad I got a little bit of FaceTime. The Italians, we need to.
I know. I know. After listening to Sam and other podcasts, I was like, I just got Harry, which I'm fine with just Harry, but I'm like, well, maybe I'm just a distributor. We don't get the whole cast of characters.
You got Biscuit. That's the most important.
By the way, I'm all. I know. And I told Harry at the beginning, Jen, my black lab Shadow always comes into the office. I don't have him here today, but hey, if I can make one last just comment, because we didn't talk about seltzer, but
yeah,
this is something I laugh at. You guys write about it all the time. Do me a favor, like we got to walk a little bit away from the narrative that seltzer is dead, because I got to tell you, it ain't remotely dead. I mean, in any way, shape, or form. And by the way, this isn't a cheap plug out for any specific supplier other than, I mean, it's 16% of my total business out. And by the way, still gaining market share. So yes, have the trends, decelerated. You guys write about it 100%. But I got to tell you, that category is going to be led by innovation. We are super bullish behind it. And by the way, it's going to change the makeup over time, right? It's going to evolve. But man, I got to tell you, I got to keep reading one more time that seltzer's dead. I look at how many, we sell 8.5 million cases of this brand and growing share. I'm like, I get there's deceleration and declines, but as that big tail gets cut off, which is happening right now, I can promise you that tail's getting cut off. Consumers are going to keep coming back to where 75% of the share is. And that ain't going away.
The shakeout was inevitable. It's coming and it's here and it's faster than I think than maybe thought.
Yep.
But yeah, it's still a growing category and it's
a
still a
freaking great category. I mean, we love this non-traditional beverage, alcohol beverage space. RTDs, obviously, we didn't talk about that, but spirit-based RTDs are playing in that. I just love that, you got to give consumers what they want, and consumers are changing, and a lot of suppliers are doing it really well. And I agree with you, Harry. This fell off faster than most people thought, and there's write downs, and the market's going a little crazy right now with it. But I still, we are so bullish on seltzer and FMBs as the wave of the future.
Great.
Yeah, and we didn't really touch on that, so maybe in a month or two, can we have you back to? I mean, that's the thing, is we have so much to talk about, right, Jen? We need to go back to the daily podcast, Jen. There's just too much. There's too much going on.
Well, the problem with that is I also have other work during the day.
I know. We're honestly, Chris, we're short as well on labor. We're short this week because Jordan's on vacation, which I don't know who approved that. Jordan's not allowed to take vacation. He's only worked here 6 years. You're not allowed to take vacation until you work here 10 years, right, Biscuit?
I love it.
Second is,
and then you get a 3-month sabbatical, right, Harry? Because I'm about to be 11 years, but I guess I took 6 months.
Yeah, you've already taken 2 3-month sabbaticals called family leave or whatever, right?
I gotta tell you, I appreciate the invite, Harry. I get honored and flattered every time you call me or Jen calls me to do something, because I love reading what you guys are doing and talking about every day. And obviously I'm so passionate. I love this business. And the only thing I'd ever be any good at. So I think I found my niche, but happy to come back. Happy to help any way I can. But I'm super appreciative you guys invited me to do this, probably on behalf of getting some distributors' voices heard, and especially with some of the health and safety and COVID issues. And I said it earlier, but man, for speaking on behalf of all distributors around the country, our frontline employees deserve more recognition and credit than we could ever offer them verbally or monetarily. But they're the ones who helped this beer industry survive through times when no one else was out of their office or out of their house, and they were out every single day. So I'll end with that last, just big, grateful and big thank you to all the distributors around the country.
Man, it's a message of hope from Chris Steffanci.
Chris.
It is. Maybe I can run for office on that message. Hope.
Yes.
I think that was already done.
I mean,
right.
I mean, president and
CEO.
And CEO of Columbia Distributing Company of Oregon and Washington State. And you got a little shit in Northern California going on too.
You do.
Well, great. We appreciate you. This podcast, by the way, is brought to you by the Beer Industry Summit and the Wine and Spirits Summit, which will be starting January 30th in Southern California, Hotel del Coronado, San Diego. Hope to see you there. We have a great lineup. And I guess the only speakers we haven't talked about, Jen, is we have Katie Beal Brown and then Nuno from Diageo in Ranch Water. They'll be joining us on. Be sure and get your ticket on beernet.com. I will be reaching out to you, Chris, also on another matter that I'm reaching out to, just kind of some distributor leaders, because we're redesigning our website and stuff, and I need, like you said, go into your partners and asking what what their strategy is and what my strategy is. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to go to my biggest, but larger customers and what do you need? Tell them, help me, help you, help me.
Greatest movies of all time.
That's right, Jerry Maguire. And I'm not, it's not to ask for money or more money. That's the thing. I want to charge the same price you're paying that you have been paying for the last several years.
Yeah.
But it's so valuable that you'll never let it go.
I love
that
it.
That is my strategy.
To hear that pitch. I love it.
Right? Stickiness. I want loyalty, stickiness. I want to make the greatest product. And charge a little more, inflation and all that. But
we'll just sprinkle it in a little. But
we're sprinkling a little extra money here and there.
Inflation, guys, inflation, it affects us.
If you're going to go based on inflation, you charge an extra 12%.
I know. Well, everybody's getting a 10% raise to beat inflation, and pricing's going up 20%.
Exactly. Yeah. Why can't I can afford my eggs less now after my 10% raise?
Yeah, right. Terrible. All right, man. Well, thanks for being on, and thanks for drinking beer, Chris. And
Awesome. Always great catching up. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
all right,
Thanks,
man.
Chris.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.